my concerns and why I was wondering if it might not work in just a moment. I'm ready. I'm ready for a show. Let's do it. Also ready to go back to bed. I don't know about you. Most days I'm ready for that. 3, 2, 1. Good morning, everybody. Should I start saying good morning, martial artists? I might do that. Good morning, martial artists. Welcome. Today is Tuesday, December 15th, 2020. My name is Jeremy, and this is my first cup of coffee. Would that be better for, no. I don't know. What do you think? Should we say good morning, martial artists? It's longer. Actually, it's the same number of syllables. I don't know. So yesterday, mid-show, Google had their lovely outage. And I knew something was going weird because all of a sudden I had no numbers. No numbers right there of how many people were watching or how many thumbs up there were. They just disappeared. And then when I went to end the show, the YouTube app said, hey, something's broken. I went, huh, that's funny. And then couldn't load my calendar. And then all of a sudden I could. It didn't last long for me, but I know it was a frustrating thing for quite a few people. And yesterday's episode, at least at the time, we started this one, still said we were live. But I rebooted my phone a couple times to make sure that there wasn't still a live feed coming out of my phone. I have no idea what to do to fix that. So I guess it's just gonna stay there. Maybe I'll end up deleting it. Who knows? Who knows? Technology is fun, isn't it? I used to tell people, back when I was doing IT, if this stuff was easy, I wouldn't have a job. Good morning, Casper. Though it's not quite morning there, right? Late morning? You've probably already had your coffee today. Yesterday. What was yesterday? It was Monday. Yep. Late morning. Well, still good morning to you then, my friend. Yesterday was productive. Got a bunch of work done. Today's going to be crazy. I've got podcast interviews and client calls. Got somebody that wanted a database, so we built up I built this database spec for him, and we've bounced some emails back and forth, and now he wants to go over it. So we've got a Zoom call where I'm gonna have to try to explain the 9, 10 tables in this database and all these other aspects to it. And fortunately, it's towards the beginning part of the day, after I write. I think we go on at 9, so my brain won't be fried yet. But I've got a podcast interview today. I have to shave at some point. I went to the gym last night. My favorite part about the gym? Dog. There's a dog there. My favorite part about hiking this past weekend? The dogs. There was a Bernese Mountain Dog puppy. Like a young Bernese Mountain Dog puppy. Big feet. Loved being in the snow. Possibly one of the cutest things I've ever seen in my life. If they didn't turn into small horses, that would be a great breed, because they're just so fun. They're so happy. But they become enormous. I don't know if you've ever hung out with a Bernese Mountain Dog or St. Bernard or anything else anything similar to that breed, but they're big dogs. They're huge. We could turn them into a pack animal. So yeah, it was a good day. I had trouble sleeping. I kept coming up with things I should do for whistlekick. That's not something that happens often, at least not while I sleep. I have this idea. I'll share it with you. I don't think I'm going to go forward with it because I don't think it would get mass adoption. I, and at this point, anything that we do has to either make us money or have a reasonable chance of being big, just because of the sheer fact that I'm overloaded. And so this idea, I've got this. When I look at the way martial arts is taught, nuance is incredibly important, but nuance is not important at the beginning stages. And I see a lot of instructors teaching people to punch and kick, basic techniques with far too much complexity. They make it way too hard. And they don't rely on movement patterns that the people naturally have. For example, if you want to teach a front kick, teach somebody to pick up their knee first. Teach knee strikes. Knee, 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 knee. And then it's knee, flick your foot. Knee, flick your foot. I can teach anybody to make a front kick that way. Now here's the one that is hardest. Sidekick. If you're a martial arts instructor, if you've ever taught somebody how to throw a sidekick, no matter what way you throw a sidekick, it's hard because there's hip rotation, at least in all the traditional versions of a sidekick I've ever learned, and getting people to do that, it's hard. But if you start from a knee, and then you have them stomp, and then you have them stomp out to the side, knee up front, stomp to the side, knee up front, stomp to the side, and now they're doing that, they're doing a sidekick. And it says, another day, another first cup of coffee. Knee up, stomp to the side. And then what if that stomp happens a little bit higher up? Oh, Frank, I don't even know if the questions are there. Let me, did you Facebook them as well? Oh, you probably weren't able to copy them in because the video is weird. Did you Facebook them to me? If you did, you should be here. I don't see, if you can, I don't see them in Facebook. So if you want to, whatever works for you, my friend. But if you bring knee up, stomp to the side, and then if that stomp, if you stop making contact with the ground, guess what? That's a sidekick. And then you tell them knee up, stomp, and then you stomp higher, that's a sidekick. It's all the fundamentals you need. Yeah, there's nuance. Yeah, you have to adjust it. But if you give somebody something that they can have some confidence in, so I've got this idea, how do I present this information in such a way that doesn't infringe on what martial arts schools are teaching? And I've got this idea that, again, I don't think I'm going to go forward with, of sort of martial arts for non-martial artists, giving martial artists just enough information that they feel confident starting a class. Because we've heard many times, I'm sure we all have, oh, I'm intimidated to go to start training, I've got to lose weight before I start training. There are a lot of excuses. So if you give people who are interested in training a little bit of information so that maybe they feel better about it, and I'd love to do that. But I don't know that people are looking for that. And I don't know that people would do that. And my concern is that we would put the resources into it, and the only people that we would attract would be martial artists who complain about it. Right? So if anybody wants to spearhead that project, go for it. Because I'm not going to do it. But I still like my ideas on how to teach these techniques. So. My number one tip for teaching side kicks and round kicks and hook kicks. Thank you, Emmett. Emmett says I have some great ideas. Thank you. My number one way for teaching side, hook, round kicks, stop teaching them in a front stance. Teach them while they're standing there, just in a regular ready stance. Kick to the side. Stop putting rotation in on the kick when they first learn it. It's silly. It's very silly. Martial arts isn't that hard. It's really not. As instructors, we make it so much harder. That's most things. Most things are easier than we make them out to be. I don't know if I've shared this. I'm watching an interesting TV show in between. Oh, okay. Frank, so I do have those. I do see those. The Dick Van Dyke. And I read, if you want to reuse, we can certainly reuse the Dick Van Dyke stuff. Because nobody saw it, right? Like what, one person got halfway through the show yesterday. So that totally works for me. Let's do it. So I've been watching a bunch of stuff. Netflix, Hulu. Hulu right now for me is like Saturday Night Live and The Conners, which is a phenomenal show. John Goodman is one of the greatest actors of our age. And it says, I'm stealing your idea. I'm running a real basics Zoom class in January aimed at local women with all money being donated to a local domestic violence charity. I love it. Boom. Just remember, they need to learn the most basic stuff possible. They need to learn mindset. It's the number one issue I see with the way self-defense is taught. Actually, we've done a few episodes on that. If you haven't listened to them, as you're thinking about what you want to teach, you might want to take a look at those. And I'm not trying to, I am absolutely not saying my ideas are better than yours. I'm saying that I have some perspective on this. And if you value it, which I would guess if people are watching this show, stupid flies, I'm so sick of these flies. They may find some value in my perspective. You may want to check out those episodes. The number one thing I think people need to leave a self-defense class with is a sense of confidence, not a sense of confusion, which is how most of it's taught. Okay, and then you grab the wrist and you do this and then, what? Nobody's gonna be able to do that in the moment that they need it. Take your hand and slap them in the face and then push up on their nose. That they can do. Easy stuff. I watch a lot of different things. And the thing I'm watching the most right now is called Zoo. It's based on a James Patterson novel. And it's on Netflix. And I just started season 2. I think I'm on like episode 2 of season 2. And it's it's like Lost meets animal zombies. It's really interesting. Some of the writing and the science they bring in is just terrible and wrong. But it's still fun. And that's okay. Sometimes TV is just fun. I don't think there's anything else to share. Yesterday I did talk a bit about my weekend and went for a hike and how nice that was to be outside. I don't think we need to revisit any more of yesterday. It'll just be a more or less lost episode. Lost to the ether thanks to Google or whatever the outage cause was. I know it had something to do with Google, but I don't know what caused it. And I don't really care. It doesn't matter. We move forward. Onward and upward. Yesterday, 2 days ago, Sunday, December 13th, 2020 was Dick Van Dyke's 95th birthday. Dick Van Dyke is well known for his long career in TV and movies. What he is less well known for is his endorsement of a program called Tai Cheng. The Tai Cheng program was founded by Dr. Mark Cheng, based on his experience in Tai Chi and sports medicine. Dick Van Dyke's a legend. I mean, there's this interesting group of entertainers of his era that were just so prominent and prolific with their careers. You think of the comedians from that time, and they did so much. And I don't see a lot of entertainers, let's say in the kind of the next generation down in their 60s and 70s, that are still going and going to make it there. I mean, there are some, I don't imagine Sam Elliott, who I think I talked about yesterday. I don't imagine he's going away anytime soon. He was just on an episode of Family Guy. There's certainly people there. Good morning, Nathan. We've got martial artists who teach and teach and teach and teach and teach and teach and then die. And while I'm not happy that they died, I'm happy to see that they continue to pass on their information until they pass away. I think that's phenomenal. If you find your purpose, if you find what works for you, what you love, you're not going to stop doing it. The idea that you're too old to do something is utterly ridiculous. You may not be in the physical condition to do it, but that can occur despite age. And if we look at people who follow a traditional career path, they work, they retire somewhere in their 60s. Which people continue to live long, healthy, happy lives? People who can find purpose. Who dies quickly? The ones who don't. Not forgetting the circumstances under which he retired. Joe Paterno, famous coach for the Penn State football team, he coached until, his 80s? And then he was pushed out. Again, it wasn't his choice. That's all I'm saying. If you know the circumstances. And he was dead in 6 months. He didn't have anything else to live for. Ooh. Emmett's asking, do they stop teaching when they pass away now, or is the advancement in technology allowing their teaching to continue many years after they have gone? Great question. I think you could make a case that they certainly are. There's plenty of video. You get groups, people like us, recording their lessons, their words, and continuing to share them. One of my hopes with martial arts radio is that it'll always be there. I've said from day one, feel free to share it. Feel free to repost episodes as long as it's in entirety. I don't want people sharing out segments. But you want to share the whole thing start to back, go for it. You want to, because we get guests that ask that, can I put this on my website? Yeah, you can link to it, or if you want to, put the file there yourself, go for it. Totally cool for me. Frank says, Dick Van Dyke wrote a book titled Keep Moving. It's the heart of it right there. You stop moving, you die. We're sharks. But without teeth, they regrow. I was supposed to go in for another checkup on the teeth yesterday, and there was an emergency, so we've been rescheduled for Friday. So we got some quotes here from Dick Van Dyke. Women will never be as successful as men because they have no wives to advise them. There's some humor in there, of course, and it's interesting to see how I've never been married. So I'm not going to pretend to understand this quote from experience. But I've certainly been in long-term relationships, and I know how much more successful, how much more driven I am when I'm in a good relationship. And I don't know that necessarily has to do with a male-female dynamic. But I think it's more that you're happy and you have something you can trust, something you can lean against, some structure. I've talked over the last few weeks about my view that we understand the world through boundaries and through the ways that we relate to those boundaries. A relationship provides a boundary. It's a point of demarcation, something that you can point to and say, this record. Casper says, "Yep, my wife grounds me." Yeah, it's a great way to put it. Grounded, something stable to refer to. And of course the jokes about women and how important they are. And I think quite often those jokes came up through the 50s and 60s because a lot of men weren't able to really express how important their wives were publicly. But I'm glad we're past that now. Maybe not past that, but we're getting there. Women can do, with the exception of biology, anything men can do. Some of those things they can do better. Some of those things we are genetically predisposed to do differently. And in some cases, some things will generally be better handled by a man versus a woman. But it's like sparring. I can throw a jump spinning hook kick if we're sparring, but it doesn't mean it's the best choice. You have to be able to laugh at yourself. Attitude is almost more important than what happens to you. I said this yesterday. We can't control what other people do. We can only control how we respond to it. There's a line, really a whole scene in Training Day with Denzel Washington, Ethan Hawke. Great movie. Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg are in there. It's an awesome movie. But there's a line in there that Ethan Hawke's character says, telling the punchline to a joke. You have to control your smiles and cries because that's all you have. What are smiles and cries? They're reactions. They're responses to what other people do. When you spar, you're reacting to what other people do. In life, we react to what other people do. You have a reaction to what I'm saying now. You can't control what I say. You can only control your reactions. Oh, but I could turn it off. That's a reaction. And when you realize that your power is in how you react, you can be a lot more intentional with those reactions. A good amount of what happens just in life is based around our willful compliance to react in ways that we have been invited to react. Why is social media so powerful? Because it has been designed in a way that can predict our reactions. There are a lot of people who are involved in the early days of social media speaking out against it because it has been developed in such a way that is not necessarily healthy. You ever said, oh, I've got to go post this thing or respond to this comment, and 20 minutes later you're going, wait, why was I here? Happens all the time. Happens because control of reactions. That's why it's so important in any kind of street confrontation that you remain calm. You work to remain calm. That you can't control what the other person does, but you can avoid giving them things that make them more likely to react in a way you don't want them to, i.e. raising your voice, i.e. bringing your fists up in an aggressive manner. That's going to create a response. Hopefully, you don't want them to respond in a violent way. Walt Disney and I always said we were two children looking for our inner adults. That probably describes me too. I'm 41 years old. I don't feel it. You can see there's some white in my beard. Can you see that? There it is. There's white in my beard, and no, it's not cat hair. One of the things I do before the show is I go in and check the bathroom mirror. Look, is there cat hair in my beard? Because they're quite off. There's cat hair right here on the stand. See? There's cat hair. I don't think you're going to be able to see that. But it's there. It's everywhere. If I didn't know I was 41, if I didn't have a mirror, if I woke up one day and just lived my life, I would still think I was in my mid-20s. I have a better understanding of the world, but I'm still excited. I still feel... I've always had this split. Half of me is more comfortable hanging out with people who are older. The other half, people younger. So here I am at 40, and I think I'm most comfortable with people in their 20s and their late 50s, early 60s. Socially, people in their 20s. Professionally, people in their 60s. Because that's who I have things in common with. I'm excited about the world and want to take it by the horns like people in their 20s. But I've accomplished things and I have some perspective like people in their 60s. It's always been me. I'm okay with that. One more. I didn't know the answers, but I could feel that the things that gave life meaning came from a place within and from the nurturing of values like tolerance, charity, and community. What is tolerance? It's compassion. It's a willingness to allow people to occupy the same space, literally or figuratively, even though they might have a different view. Tolerance has gone out the window the last decade or so. We, in fact, are in a time where we have started to champion intolerance as a response to intolerance. And the irony doesn't seem to land on anyone who is championing that. There is no situation I can imagine where removing compassion, which is what tolerance is, there's no situation I know of where removing compassion makes it better. So if you are someone who has championed intolerance, if you've justified the exclusion of anyone for any reason, I'd like you to consider that. You are not making the world better. You're drawing a hard line that forces people into camps that we know as martial artists entrenches them and their beliefs. It is not through division that we solve problems. It's through the recognition of what we have in common. Charity, service. Charity doesn't necessarily mean some kind of formal giving of money. It's, hey, it's helping. It's compassion. It's a recognition that you may be in a position to benefit someone else when they're not able to. Doesn't have to mean that they're homeless. It's giving of what you have to someone who doesn't have it. It could be knowledge. Sharing information that you have freely with others. One of the things we try to do in martial arts radio. There's we can call it charity in the form, in the way that we think of it socially, but kind of is. Sharing information with those around you. Why do we do it? To benefit martial artists. And community. What's community? Community is what happens when you have a whole bunch of tolerance and charity. People come together. They work together to common goals. We are part of a martial arts community. You may not engage with that community, but you're part of it. We're a global community. People who train because we believe that it makes us better. We believe it's worth our time, our money. I believe I'm a better person as a martial artist than I would have been without martial arts. Probably wouldn't be here without martial arts. And I don't just mean doing this show. I just mean probably wouldn't be here. The more we recognize what we have in common, whether that's the martial arts community or just people in general, the better things are, the better things get. And it's really hard to get other people to change the way they act, so don't. Model the behavior that others should have. Be the person that you want your kids to be. You want your kids to be hateful and angry? Most people don't. Hate and anger comes back. It doesn't help you. It doesn't serve you. It doesn't build community. It doesn't foster tolerance. It is not charitable. All right. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to go grab another cup of coffee. I'm going to go work on the book. I might have the draft done by the end of the week. Knock on wood. I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope I'll see you tomorrow. I hope you'll leave some comments for me to talk about with the show tomorrow. Enjoy your day. Take care, everybody. Peace.